welcome back to another episode of Rise and Align, or welcome if you are brand new. We are your hosts, Demi and
Halie. Today we're diving into a really fun topic that's near and dear to both of our hearts. We are talking all about the moon, and we have touched on this a little bit in previous episodes, but the moon does represent feminine energy, and it does run on approximately a 28-day cycle, just like women. If you think about it, the sun, it sets and rises every single day, and that's a very masculine cycle and a masculine way of living. And the moon has different phases, and it every single day it looks a little bit different, and the energy that it invites us to embody is a little bit different. So we're going to dive into that today. I wanted to talk a little bit about my history with the moon, just because it's been something that I've loved ever since I was a kid. I remember when I was really young, we'd always go for like late night drives. That was like what we did as a family. We'd all like grab our blankets and get in our cozy clothes and go for late night drives. And my mom would talk to my brother. He was older, I wouldn't pay much attention to their conversations because it was very adulty. So I would just sit in the back seat and I would just look at the moon, and I was just so fascinated by it. And my favorite show was Bear in the Big Blue House, and at the end of every episode they would sing goodnight to the moon, and I just loved it. So from such a young age I've been like fascinated with the moon, and it was like normal to me to like talk to the moon and whatnot. So yeah, I just love her so much.
me too. I think so many people can relate to that too. I've always been fascinated by the moon. That's funny. You were like, I used to sit in the back of the car and like stare at the moon. So did I. So did I.
Yes.
I love the moon. Even, now too, almost every day I'm like, look at the moon.
every day. And I'm like, okay, where is she? What's she doing today?
Right.
And now where I'm at today, I have continuously worked on bringing her magic into my life and incorporating my cycle with hers, and it has taught me a lot about myself. And I do yoga classes based off of where the moon is at, like new moon and full moon rituals. And I think the more that we connect to the moon and embrace her cycles and phases, the more that we can learn about ourselves, especially as women, and our feminine energy. And yeah, it's truly magical.
I completely agree. And I would say not only as women, but as humans who are made of at least 70% water too, because the gravitational pull of the moon actually affects the tides of the ocean. And I do believe that it affects our energy as well. I mean, as a woman, like, you definitely feel it throughout your cycle, but I think that people act crazy on the full moon, and I think it really does have such an effect on everyone's.
Yeah, there's a lot of like correlations that occur along with the full moon, and I think a lot of scientists are afraid to specifically say or do studies that say like the moon impacts you directly, but there are a lot of correlations that point to that direction. I did work in a nursing home. I worked in an Alzheimer's unit, and there's sundowning where, especially around the full moon, they do kind of start to get a little bit more irritated and active, I would say. So, I have experienced it myself in situations where you can actually see it affect people as well.
Yeah, definitely. And animals as well. Like, wolves howl at the full moon, I believe, right?
I think so, yeah.
So yeah, that said, I actually made an entire calendar because I thought it was so interesting that you can align your moon cycle with that of the moon. And when you do, I found that it helped me to understand my body better and understand like different energy levels during like every different day of your cycle, right? And then also like the new moon can align with like when you ovulate, like and so because our cycle is 28 days, and actually different females, I guess, are not always the same. We don't all have the exact same, but it will rotate. So sometimes like my moon will be on a full moon, and then I think the other half of the year it's on a new moon.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, like, I saw this somewhere, that you are a blood witch if your moon cycle aligns with that of the full moon, and you are a white witch if your moon cycle is aligning with the new moon.
Yeah, I have heard that too. I've heard it like the red moon and the white moon. And when you are bleeding, was it on the red moon?
Yep.
I think there's like different symbolic representations for that, or like the energy that you are said to be embodying when that is the case. And I think based off of like some things that I read, when you are aligning with the red moon, you are embodying more of that like inner witch, inner healer energy, and reaching like your self actualization. You're focused on yourself and your growth and healing others. And when you align with more of that white moon, you are more fertile physically, and you're kind of in a fertile time of your life of like planting seeds and starting new beginnings. And it's also, it's just kind of a different symbolic of where you're at in your journey, or like what you're meant to be embodying at that time. So I think that's a super interesting
It's so cool.
concept.
It makes sense that you would be fertile, or your life would be fertile for the new moon as well. That's super cool. I love that.
Yeah. I think it might be helpful to dive into the different moon phases, because that can give us a good understanding of the moon cycle as a whole, and then how that can apply to you, and how that can apply to manifestation, or how it can apply to if you're exploring magic or rituals, like how the different phases can apply to that. And I would say that the moon phase starts, or the moon starts as the new moon. It's the dark moon, and it is a time of new beginnings, and where you would want to start planting your seeds of intentions. It's a time where you are a little bit, slower paced in energy, and you're more asked to be a little bit more like introverted and introspective. So you can it's a good time for like journaling and getting clear about your intentions, or what you want to call in. And for me, it's like a really good time to be cozy. This is when I like to do a little new moon ritual, light a candle, I'll journal, think about what I want to call in. And it's a good time for self-care, yin yoga, and just clearing the energy of your space, or clearing the energy inside as well.
I mean, I pretty much agree with all of that. I definitely look at the new moon as a great time to start thinking about, the seeds you want to plant, the intentions that you have, and what you want to manifest for the next phase. Definitely.
Yeah. And when I teach yoga with the new moon, it's usually a slower paced practice, and it's like more about getting into the hips and releasing emotions, and it's just a lot slower paced as opposed to as we move through the cycle and get to the full moon. So the moon phases, they actually go clockwise, I believe. So it would start, the next phase would be almost like a backwards C.
Yeah.
And it would be the waxing crescent. And this is when you start to get a little bit motivated towards pursuing those intentions that you set. You start to set foundations and show commitment to your intentions that you set. And it's a really good time to generate like positivity and hope towards whatever it is that you're wanting to call in. And I like to think of this time as a good opportunity to make a mood board, or get your planner set and like get yourself organized.
Yes. I wrote almost the same thing. I wrote that it represents courage, moving forward, having faith in your dreams, and taking inspired action.
Yes, inspired action. We love that around here. And just like breathing life into your intentions, taking those first couple steps, and just getting excited about the journey ahead, which we would then move into the first quarter. So this is a half moon, and this is where you're going to start wanting to take more action.
During the first quarter moon, your commitment may be challenged, or you may face other challenges. Because once you do start taking those actions, you might run into contrast, or you might have to
Mm-hmm.
change your path or something. So that could happen around then. It says it's important to stay confident in yourself and in your beliefs. This is a great time to practice your alignment techniques and keep moving forward. Keep affirming and keep the faith even in the face of challenges.
Yes, I love that. And, it's using your passion towards the project to move through the resistance, move through the contrast.
Yes.
So when you and being committed to staying in alignment too is going to help you work through any of that contrast that comes up.
Yeah, stay focused on your why. You'll move through it. After the first quarter moon is the waxing gibbous moon, when the moon appears to be more than half lit up, but yet not fully illuminated. It represents a time to adjust, hone, and tweak ideas and stay persistent on your path. This is leading to your climax.
Yes. And it's at this time you might need to continue to adjust or pivot a little bit as challenges continue to come up, and your patience may be tested at this time, but just reaffirming your commitment to whatever it is that you're calling in. And it is also inviting you to be flexible, because as we've talked about before, the universe works in mysterious ways, and maybe things will work out differently or better than you could have imagined. So just being flexible with how things continue to unfold for you. I think that's important to remember at this time. And it's also a good time, I think, to pull tarot cards, because if you are facing challenges, it can give you insight to that situation, or just kind of give you a different perspective of what it is you're going through.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I also feel like, for me, if your moon cycle is aligned with the full moon, that is a time where I get rather low energy, and I get kind of like I'm hungry, and I'm maybe a little more emotional, and things seem like you can almost feel like a climax coming, but you're like, oh, what is wrong? And then you're like, oh, right, that's okay. This makes
yes,
sense.
This all yes.
It's good to remind yourself just to be gentle, and remind yourself that how you're feeling and what you're focusing on is what you're attracting during that time. I feel like even just remembering that and like using those practices, and there are tons of practices for premenstrual yoga and things like that too that can be so helpful during that time, because it is an emotional time. It's an emotional buildup.
That's true. And along with that, exercising in general, when you're in different phases of your cycle, you should actually be doing different exercises for your body. And whether you're trying to lose weight or not, I've heard that women who are on a weight loss journey, you shouldn't actually be like high energy pushing all the time. There's actually only one or two parts of your cycle where you should be in that super intensity workout phase. So start thinking about aligning how you feel with your exercises, like how you feel at that point in your cycle, and listening to your body, finding what feels good in your body, and not forcing an exercise that doesn't feel good to you. I know for me in this phase, I too am starting to feel maybe a little bit irritable, and your body is not as wanting to work as hard, and it's trying to maybe preserve energy for what's to come. But I think that just everyone's journey with this is going to be a little bit different, but keeping in mind like how you're feeling in your body and what it actually wants from you at that time.
Yes, I find that if you, like you always say, if you're intuitive about it, but listen to your intuition, listen to your body. If you really do tune into your body, and instead of getting frustrated with yourself, like, why am I being so lazy? Or, why do I not want to eat salad right now? Like, allow yourself to intuitively, whether it's exercising or working, or, if you want to have like a piece of cake or something, like allow your body to do that when you feel that it is right for you. I feel like when you give your body that kind of gentle love, then, when your energy comes back,
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely to be like, yeah, now it's time to do this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this now feels good. It now feels aligned. And it's much different than if you are, kind of acting from your masculine and forcing yourself to do the same thing every day, because your body is not the same every day and your energy levels are not the same every day.
Yeah.
So tuning into that is, it's aligning you with nature as well as aligning you with your
Yeah.
body,
Yes. Yes. And I think that's why it's so important to start syncing yourself with this and noticing it. And because once you do, you are better in tune with yourself and what you need, and you're able to better care for yourself, or your body, your mind, your soul.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that is the magic of aligning yourself with the moon.
I really think so too.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much easier to be gentle and loving with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and to understand, because then you can work with yourself and work with your energy,
Mm-hmm.
and
And it's actually more productive in the end.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And then you don't have that, like self-hatred or guilt or anger towards yourself for, I didn't do this today. Instead, you can say, oh, well, you know what, today I had lower energy, but
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow I'll get this and this done.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's so nice.
Yes. And I feel like if you're someone who really likes to see and to plan, Virgos,
Yeah,
like Virgo
yeah,
girlies,
this is great for Virgo.
get your calendar out, right? Like I would, start thinking about these phases and writing it down on a calendar. Like, these are the things that I'm going to have to do coming up, and start picking where you want to do those things based off where you are in your cycle, or based off where the moon cycle is. It's life changing. But
Yes.
I mean, that is one method to do it. Like, you can, if you like to plan ahead and have that organization, like, that is a really good way to
Yes,
work
I
through that.
completely agree. And having lists of things, is so, you will be 10 times more productive if you write down and plan out and visualize yourself doing them. So when you do that in advance, when like, okay, this week I'm going to have more energy and this week I'm going to have less, and you allow yourself that time, you will be so productive and it will flow, and it's so nice. We love to flow.
Anything to make life feel better.
Yes, yes, yes. So this is my favorite phase. I love the full moon. I don't know. Everyone's like got different opinions on it, but I think it's just the most magical phase.
Yes, yes. So the full moon, it represents like completion, because if you think about it, we start at the new moon and it creates a full circle. It comes full circle.
Yep.
And so this is a time for celebration, potentially completion of something that you're wanting to call in. And we like to think of it as like harvest, like it's time to harvest everything that you've been working so hard on. This is a time of peak energy. So this is, when you may want to be doing those harder workouts, or your manifestations. There's very high energy that you may want to put towards your manifestations, or if you're doing a spell jar or you're doing any sort of ritual, this is, in my opinion, peak energy for manifesting those things. And yeah, at this time in the sky, the moon is actually opposite of the sun, which is why it appears full, because the sun or the moon is able to reflect the sunlight.
I think the full moon is such a time to surrender as well, and to let go of what is no longer serving you. Your body is literally letting go of what's no longer serving you during that time as well. So that really aligns you, and sets you up for that new moon manifestation period. So it's interesting, because the week prior to this is the week I'm most tired. And then I feel like when you do bleed, you actually have more energy during that time, ironically. Some people really struggle with pain and things like that, which I've been learning that you shouldn't be doing inversions during that time, because it actually can be like not helpful to your body.
Yeah. So if your menstrual cycle does align with the moon cycle on the full moon, if that is when you're bleeding, you're going against gravity. Like yogi squats, a really good way to promote the bleeding. Say your moon cycle may not align with the moon cycle, but if that's the case, Yeah, like I totally agree with what you say about that. And I did learn that too with the inversions, and I have been practicing that myself actually
Yeah, I
and
never knew
teaching.
that
Yeah.
before. I just done
Mhm.
that recently and I was
Mhm.
like, oh, that makes sense. And then I kind of felt like I was doing some yoga for that purpose. And I was like, oh, this is like way nicer to my body.
Mhm.
Like, this
Yes.
feels
Yeah.
better.
Yes. Like I don't even do downward dogs when
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
on my moon cycle anymore.
Yeah. It's so nice to, just be aware and just to tune into your body. And
Mhm.
it allows you to start to treat yourself differently.
For sure. We were kind of talking about at this time people may start to get like agitated. It's because the energy is so high and intense, and I think the gravitational pull is stronger, can cause a little bit of like frustration or high emotions, and it especially depends on what astrological sign that the sun and the moon is in. But with that, I think the moon has the the full moon has a negative like connotation to it, or like people are like, oh god, it's the full moon, that's why all the crazies are out. But
Yes.
we love the full moon, and we feel like we thrive off the full moon because I
Yes.
feel like we know how to harness the energy and use it
Yes.
towards
Exactly.
our highest good. And you know, so it's all how you look at it. But as we've both said, like we love the full moon, and we actually think of it as just a really amazing, like,
I think it's kind of magical,
mm-hmm,
and there are so many different full moons, and
mm-hmm,
it turns different colors, and
mm-hmm,
it's so cool. And I also wrote about this period that, releasing, because when energy has that buildup and you might feel irritable, it's because you're focusing on something or like holding a belief that's making you feel that way.
mm-hmm,
So with releasing that, I said, step into your inner child innocence with complete faith that the universe will support and reward you. I think that having that mindset will change like everything,
mm-hmm.
but also it allows you to feel that energy can be harnessed, it can be
Mm-hmm.
transmuted and
Yeah.
used to manifest. It's such a
Yes. Yeah.
magical time.
Yes. And with yoga at this time, I typically like to do my classes. They're a little bit more high intensity so that you can transmute that extra energy, transmute that, maybe those emotions or those feelings that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, yoga has always been a way to bring me back to the present moment, but also to as a release and to let go of these things that you may be holding on to. So I definitely agree with that. And yeah, it's definitely a wonderful time for releasing.
It is.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to touch on, I have this book here, and it's really fun, especially if you are a little more witchy, but it's called The Complete Book of Moon Spells, and it's
Oh.
rituals, practices, and potions for abundance. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about a couple things in here, because different moons have different names, and they are named after indigenous cultures who did rely on the moon for survival and just for living. So it's very interesting. So January, they call it the wolf moon because wolves are often howling at the moon because they're hungry, or for whatever reason, and that encourages family friendship and leadership, but a lot of times it's going to also align with the zodiac sign at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Just some other fun ones, like April is usually called the pink moon, and it is just representative or named after the pink flowers that blossom in the spring.
May is the flower moon.
Yes, yep, because of the abundance of flowers in bloom. You know, July is the buck moon because deer are growing their antlers, and September's the harvest moon because crops are ready for harvest. So I think it's super fun that, you know, we have these names for them that
Mm-hmm.
we're based off of what
What's happening in nature at the time.
and it connects us to a culture where people did actually rely on the moon and utilize the moon for their best life, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, and I feel like it helped guide them and plan,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. So the moon is also in a different zodiac sign almost every day, really, but the new moon and the full moon are usually opposing energies or the opposing zodiac signs from one another. So it's interesting to think about it from that perspective as well, because different zodiac signs are going to ask us to invite in different energies or to look at different things. So say the new moon is in Aries. Aries represents action, and it's more of like the masculine energy and taking those action steps. You can actually think about that when you're setting your intentions on that new moon and how those energies correspond to each other. Another example, say we are talking about Gemini, a full moon in Gemini. So Gemini can represent like communication, intelligence, things of that nature. Maybe we want to think about if we're letting go or releasing, if we're feeling like we need a release. Maybe we are releasing old communication patterns that are no longer serving us. So I like to play with the astrology of what's going on with the moon cycles as well, and just thinking about how they align with each other.
I really love to do, basically, like, say that we're in a fire sign. I might burn what I want to release. You know what I mean? Like, I like to align, like, if the full moon's in Cancer, I'll probably take a bath.
Yes, and you know, because that aligns with that energy for sure, and you can embody that energy, which I think is so special. Like, Cancer is a water sign, but it's also like a more introspective sign, and like wants to be at home, and so obviously taking a bath is a really good self-care practice for that. But yeah, you can definitely incorporate all of those things together for the most like magical life.
How to be a witch 101. But really, though, it feels in alignment, and I think that makes it so magical. So I love to do, I guess I would call them rituals. Do rituals that align with not only the full moon, but also the sign that it's in.
Yes.
So the next full moon we have is the buck moon. July 3rd is the buck moon in Capricorn, which also aligns because Capricorn and deer both have horns.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected, as we always say.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Capricorn is an earth sign. Do we have any ideas for what rituals we would do for the Capricorn full moon?
A Capricorn full moon. I feel like for me, it would have to be outside because it's summer.
Yep.
And hopefully warm here.
Yeah.
And I think because I feel like even though they are that earth energy, I do feel like that they can be still kind of stuck in their head or stuck in their work, or like I still feel like they have tendencies to be too grounded is where I'm going.
Yeah, because I feel like Capricorns are like, they have a lot of rules and like very strong morals, and like the positive sign is that they're very productive, but they can work too much. They can make that their life.
Yes. So I feel like it would be fun to do something that is a little more like feminine and flowy, and I would say like intuitive, like dancing or like a shaking ritual.
This might be the moon to go dance in a circle naked in the woods.
Yes.
This is kind of the moon for that.
Yes.
And buck energy too, because the bucks are growing their horns, you said, right? That's why they call it the buck moon. Their energy is kind of like antsy and forward, you know, during that time.
Yes.
So that would really work.
Yes. And animals, if you've noticed, even if you may have noticed if you have like a dog or something, if something bothers them or like whatever, they do something and then they shake off, they're actually shaking off the energy that associated with that.
Yeah.
So that's like a natural response to like getting rid of energy, or you know, if you get hurt or something, like you shake it off. So I think doing a really goofy dance where you're like shaking out the energy in your body would be such a good ritual.
Barefoot, For sure.
Yes.
In the woods.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would say, for sure.
It is so funny that you said that. I mean, it's not funny. It makes so much sense. I never realized that animals are not only shaking off like wet or bugs or something, but the energy.
Mm-hmm.
I was scrolling through a dating app and literally shook because I was like, oh.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I'm like,
That's
wow,
interesting.
that is actually
Mhm.
shaking off the energy.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yes. And I do follow some spiritual leaders who actually do like spiritual twerking, because twerking
Yep.
is actually a way to release some of that energy.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
So interesting. But that's what we should
Go
do.
shake
this
about
fall
in the
month.
woods.
Yeah,
We're gonna do
we're
it.
gonna do that. It's
I
happening.
can't wait. We love the moon.
So funny. Oh my gosh. I can just briefly go through the rest of the phases. So after the full moon, we're in the waning gibbous, and this is a good time to kind of reflect on the last couple of weeks, maybe reevaluate your goals or refine what you want. It's a good time to find clarity, gratitude, and tie up loose ends. We don't want any energy leaks. And it's a good time to offer support or be in service of others. Then we continue on to the third quarter moon, and this is it really enhances that idea of releasing, letting go, maybe finding forgiveness for someone or something that has happened. A really good time to cleanse and purge and end cycles, end, maybe a relationship, or end a project, bad habits, and really clean your space. And then we end at the waning crescent. This is a time of surrender. This is the final phase before we enter before we start the cycle over. So, it's a really good time to find peace, stillness, slow down, rest, and, surrender to life and surrender to what's out of your control. And it's a really good time to connect to your intuition, become more introspective, and kind of reflect on what happened this past cycle before you begin your new cycle.
Mm-hmm. I would add to those two last cycles too. So you said a great time for forgiveness, and I think that can really include yourself. And then you also said a good time to stop, habits that are not helping you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Release bad habits. And I was reading the Silva Mind Control Method, and they talk about the best way to stop a bad habit is not to focus on the habit itself and how to fight against it, but instead to focus on the benefits of releasing that habit. And I think so many people are like, I need to heal, I need to do the work, and instead of surrendering, it's like they're battling with themselves. So I think that those concepts really align with those last two phases, because when you are able to forgive yourself and let go, and instead of focusing on the bad, focus on the positive, focus on the benefits, focus on what you do want, that's when you really truly surrender, and you just put your faith in God or the universe, or whatever you believe in, but you put your faith in your well-being, knowing that it will work out for you. And that's true alignment.
Absolutely.
Unconditional love for yourself.
Yes. I feel like I have so much I want to say about forgiveness now that I think it would be a good episode, because I just so many things just came up for me. So maybe that'll be a good episode in the coming weeks for you guys. I also, for my witchy women out there thinking about, if you have crystals or use crystals, you can actually cleanse or charge them during different phases of the moon cycle. If you're thinking about what you want to do, or what you want, what your intentions are for that crystal, you can pick the phase that aligns most with that and put the crystal in a window or outside at that time. But if you just want to simplify it, you can put your crystals outside to be cleansed or charged during a full moon. But you do also want to be mindful of the energies of the full moon, because not only are you cleansing them, you're charging them with the energy that the full moon is offering at that time. And that's going to be the sign that the moon is in at that time, the astrological sign. So just keeping that in mind as well when you're doing that. But I do love a good full moon charge on my crystals.
I do as well. And I would like to say too, if you do make moon water, you want to keep those same things in mind, because it's going to take in the energy of that moon. And then also, like, things happen like eclipses, and you know, you like, there are other astrological aspects besides the moon as well. And obviously, you know, we went over a couple of like the buck moon and the strawberry moon and stuff. So it is, you know, incorporating all of those energies within it. A lot of people say never to charge your crystals or make moon water when there is an eclipse. I don't know if I agree with that. Sometimes, just like we said, how some people have a negative perspective on the full moon, some people have a negative perspective on eclipses because the energy is so intense. But if your sign is resonating with that energy and you're personally resonating with that energy, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think you can harness that energy and use it to your advantage.
Exactly. And because it is a high energy time, and if your intentions are in the right place, like if you are in a place where you're like, you feel confident in your ability to translate or transmute that energy, I say go for it. But if it is a moon where you feel, you know, a little bit all over the place, or it's like, you know, you feel a lot of like emotional buildup, or you're feeling like you need to release things, maybe it's not the best time to do that. Like, I don't think I'd want to use moon water. Yes. I don't think I'd want to use moon water that is charged by the full moon of something that I want to release, because I don't want to like use or bring that more of that energy in, you know?
Yes,
that makes sense.
Agree.
But yeah, again, always aligning to what you are feeling and what aligns with you when you're creating rituals or doing rituals, or, you know, whatever it is, your self-care. I guess along with that, this is kind of more...
That is a bumblebee, and actually they're a healing frequency, and it's funny, he's just going back and forth between us.
Oh, he went really close to the microphone. You might have been able to hear him.
You can totally hear him. I mean, and bumblebees usually actually don't sting because they die when they do.
And they're fluffy. Like,
he was just hanging out with us. That was kind of nice.
We had a special guest.
Paid actor.
Bob. Oh my gosh. Just to talk a little bit more about the moon in general, it does embody more of that feminine energy, but it also does embody more of that like emotional aspect, that more subconscious aspect of energies of a person or whatever it is. So
what's in the dark.
Yeah. And that's, you know, it's funny, I do with a lot of my full moon yoga classes, you know, we'll like open our heart space, and it's like, let the full moon shine a light on what's hidden in the darkness so that it can come to light and can be transmuted. So that is kind of, you know, what it is too. Like, the moon is the shadow aspect.
Yeah, I think it's really important to do that self-reflection, you know, and to be open and honest with yourself and without judgment.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I just love the moon so much. It's just my favorite.
Basically, look at the moon.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. If anything, if you get anything from this episode, go look at the moon.
I wish I could see it. Oh, the sun's over there, so it must be over there.
And it's my favorite when you can see it during the day. Like, it's usually about this time or a little bit later, but you can see, like, you can kind of see her hanging out sometimes, and you're like, I see you. Hey, bestie. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Well, is it time for a card?
Yeah, I think we can pull a card. We'll pull a message for you guys. We'll leave you with a message.
Do you have
Okay, so we are pulling from Moonology Oracle cards. So perfect for today's episode.
So the one is bring love into the situation. New moon in Aquarius. So again, new moon is a great time to plant your seeds. Aquarius is all about progress and modernity. Modernity, I've never heard that word. So this is the time to move forward. The new moon in Aquarius card means no looking back. Change is on its way, and it could come quickly. Whether you get the change you want depends both on whether you believe that you can have it and how much you're relying on others to bring it to you. This card comes with the suggestion that you may need to do things independently on your own, but be loving, not too pragmatic. Time may be of the essence when this card comes up. Aquarius energy has an electric feel to it. Certainly, there is a sense that you need to let go of the past and move towards your future as soon as possible. That's good.
I feel attacked.
I do too. But attune to the moon. Explore the idea that it's not what you know, but whom you know. Attune to the moon. Well, we said that. Additional meanings for the card are: you need to be more detached from this situation. Thinking outside the box will bring the solution. We were just talking about that too, changing your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
More pragmatism is called for. Improve your karma by doing some charitable work. We literally talked about that during this episode too.
Mm-hmm.
The teaching. Aquarius is the sign of invention, modern advances, and technology and humanity. Its energy is a little brittle. It's individual, scientific, and relatively emotionally detached. I would agree Aquarius is probably the most emotionally detached sign that I've ever encountered. Many people think Aquarius is a water sign because the Aquarius symbol is the water bearer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't realize it was the bearer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually an air sign, and it is far more about intellect than the emotional water signs, as is this card. No matter when you draw it, dropping convention works well with this energy. I think, yeah, dropping convention works is Aquarius.
What does that mean?
That means, like, dropping like traditional ways of doing things and like like changing your perspective and being open to like different ways of doing things.
Yeah, I feel like that is totally something I needed to hear right now in my situation, but also like what I think I've been like avoiding hearing and telling myself.
That is the definition of tarot cards.
Yeah, it's particularly hitting me
call you
today.
out.
Yeah,
but it's always like what we need to hear most.
Yeah, very resonant. So yeah.
But I also feel like, you know, changing your perspective and, you know, leading with love and bring love into the situation. Sometimes challenges can feel so big for us. They can feel so much. But when you do bring that in, it can be really easy. It can flow and it can be really easy.
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot to ponder now, so I'm just like distracted. Anyways, thank you guys for listening as always. This is an episode that we really love. So if you love the moon, or if there's more topics along those lines you want to hear from us, let us know. We're happy to expand on that. But yeah, as always, thank you for joining us. Thank you for finding what feels good and helping us raise the frequency, and we love you. If you have a chance, please review, rate, like, comment, whatever platform you're on. We would really, really appreciate it. Yeah, and comment whatever you'd like us to do an episode on. We're totally open to any subject, and we'd love that. Yeah.
See you next episode.
Bye.